The prize awaits one of you. So give it your all.
Are you ready to rock? Are you? That's more like it.
All right. Everyone, it's time to duel!
I forwarded that email.
David Keener of the United States, Shin and Huang of Taiwan. After 2 days of dueling, these two are the last two standing in the All Ages World Championship. Keener's playing Spellbooks while his opponent is playing Dragon Rulers. This is actually the first appearance of David Keener on stage today, so we haven't seen much of his deck yet. Keener wins the dice roll, and we are ready to start.
And this shows that everything goes in the single elimination part of a tournament like this. The US player barely made it into today as the number 8 player of the tournament, and now he's sitting in the final and is posed to win it all. Only one match removed from being world champion.
Yeah, that happens more often than you think. A lot of times, when you get in at 8th place, you feel like you have something to prove, so you play a lot harder than you would normally. Keener starts out with a set card, and that's it. Looks like he didn't get any of his combo pieces early.
Or it can have the opposite effect that you're number 8, nobody expects you from winning it, and you can just play without any pressure.
Yep. Playing on house money, why not? Huang starts off with Sacred Sword of 7 stars, this Banishing Blaster, to draw 2.
Playing on house money doesn't happen in Vegas.
Special exception. Alright, he's drawn his 2. He's going to go ahead and search for Blaster to get a burner out of his deck. The best chance for Huang to win is to have a fast start and not let Keener have the turns he needs to draw towards his combo pieces.
We discussed it earlier off air, but it might be worth repeating here that in this matchup, the Spellbook deck really wants to win the first game, because after side decking, what we've seen so far here, the Dragon Ruler deck has a little bit of an advantage.
Yep, and he's trying to press it as much as he can in game 1, because he doesn't want to go into that 0-1 hole. Starting off with reacting to summon a Redox, and now appears to be Lightning as well.
Now, does Keener have anything in his main deck to disrupt the Dragon Ruler duelist?
Well, he's got traps, which we've seen in the past is the Achilles heel of Dragon Rulers. He's got the pair of Solemn, Solemn Warning, Solemn Judgment. He's got a pair of Phoenix Wing Wind Blast that can send a Dracosac or other Xyz monster straight back to the extra deck. And he's got a couple of Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spells. It's a counter trap that you would normally use against a Spellbook deck. You discard a spell, negate the activation of a spell, destroy it, and then your opponent can't play that spell for the rest of the duel. Obviously, really good against Spellbooks, where they need each of their cards to be usable all the time. Also has applications against Dragon Rulers if you hit a key spell like the Sacred Sword or Super Rejuvenation. In the meantime, Huang has summoned Mecha Phantom Beast Dracosac. Or at least he's declared that he's going to do so. And Keener is going to flip Solemn Warning, and that's the first Dracosac gone. It does, however, put Keener at 6,000 life points, and there are 2 dragons beneath it. First, he's going to banish a Redox and the Dracosac to summon back Tempest from the graveyard. And this is the part where Keener has to really hope that spending all those life points early isn't going to lead to an early end of this duel. This is still in main phase 1, so if Huang can get enough dragons on the board, he could win right here.
Is that one of the reasons why we don't see cards like Solemn Warning and Solemn Judgment as much anymore? Is it that Dragon Rulers can, or even before that, Mermails could put so much damage on the board in one turn that you can't risk it anymore?
I'd say that's definitely part of it. And another part of it is that a lot of times, after you pay those life points, it doesn't really matter. Like, you stop the summon, you win that battle, but you wind up losing the war because all those monsters come right back. It looks like he, after attacking directly with both of his Dragon Rulers, summoned his second Mecha Phantom Beast Dracosac, special summoned 2 tokens, and played Super Rejuvenation.
That's a very strong start.
That's a rough blow. Fresh hand of 6 for Huang. Keener is at very low life. Can't quite see what's going on up there. But if he can get his spellbooks rolling and start kicking out some big spellbook of fates, he could conceivably get back into it. I mean, Super Rejuvenation isn't the only quick play spell card that's going to put 6 cards in your hand that we're seeing in this tournament. Spellbook of Judgment is just as good at it. And it usually comes with a bunch of free searches from the rest of your spellbooks.
Recording something. So,
He has a bunch of spell cards in his hand, so he definitely has some options. The question is just, is it enough to get him out of this hole?
I'm pretty sure that I see a Spellbook of Judgment in here, but without much of a follow-up, there's not a whole lot of a reason to play it. The problem appears to be that he doesn't have any monsters. So all of the spellbooks that he might be holding that require a monster, like a Wisdom, a Power, Fate, Master, etc., aren't useful until he finds one. Now this is something that we didn't see in either of the other spellbook matches. Keener went ahead and activated Spellbook of Judgment during his opponent's turn. That's because Spellbook of Judgment counts spells that both players play, and since he doesn't have spells that he can play on his own, he's going to at least use Judgment to prevent his opponent from loading up on Sacred Swords and Super Rejuvenations, etc.
So it's more of a defensive way to play Judgment.
Yep. Alright. Dracosac attributes itself to target face-down Book of Moon. Book of Moon isn't usable in this situation, although I'm certain that Keener wishes it was, because it would add another spell to the count for Judgment. It's not useful for the record because tokens cannot be placed face down. They're not legal targets for Book of Moon. Next up, Blaster comes back. Tempest and Dragoonity Corsica are discarded to search for Light and Darkness Dragon. Light and Darkness Dragon is known as the bane of the spellbook deck. If you're not playing High Priestess, then you don't really have a way out of it other than to activate something and chain a Spellbook of Fate for at least 2 spells.
And it seems that was the end of Duel 1.
Yep, that was enough for Keener. Not going to be able to fight back against the Light and Darkness Dragon. So that's 1-0 to Shin Huang. If you're rooting for David Keener in this match, take solace in this. There are no Eradicator epidemic viruses anywhere in Shin and Huang's deck list. If you're rooting for Huang, he still has 3 Droll and Lockbirds, and I can guarantee you that they all made it into his main deck while side decking. On Keener's side, he's most likely to put in 3 Mind Drains to prevent his opponent from activating his Baby Dragon Ruler effects, probably along with a couple of compulsory evacuation devices and maybe a Dimensional Fissure. This game looks like it's going way better for Keener in the start. He started out with Spellbook of Judgment. It adds 1 Spellbook card to your hand, not a Spellbook spell card, which is important because that means it can also get the Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, which he appears to have just normal summoned.
And as you mentioned in the first duel, his big issue was that he didn't get any monsters, so that is taken care of right now.
With only 9 of them in his main deck, it's bound to happen sometimes. But this time around, things seem to be going far better. He's added Spellbook of Judgment to his hand with Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, and that means that he can get his combos on a roll.
Yeah, he actually played a spell card on his own turn this time.
Question is, does he have enough spellbooks to make it worthwhile?
Puts it up front.
He's thinking about it. Looks like he's got a pair of Star Halls in his hand, which aren't actually going to get him any more cards on their own, but they'll begin to accumulate spell counters as he plays more spellbooks. And they'll count for Spellbook of Judgment. He starts with Judgment, follows up with Star Hall. That Star Hall will now gain a spell counter, for every spellbook he plays. He reveals the second Star Hall to activate Spellbook of the Master, which will copy secrets. That's also the first spell counter on the first Star Hall. And it's going to get him Spellbook of Fate. Spellbook of Fate is a key part of this deck, allowing Keener to pinpoint whatever card his opponent plays that is the worst thing for him at the time, and simply banish it, at the price of banishing 3 spellbooks from the graveyard. For 2, he can flip a monster face down or face up, and for 1, he can bounce a spell or trap card back to its owner's hand. Alright, so by my count, after Judgment he played Master and 2 Star Halls, and that means he's going to get 3 spellbooks from his deck at the end phase, and special summon a level 3 or lower spellcaster from his deck. That would be Jalvin the Spiritualist, a level 3 spellcaster that prevents all special summons for as long as he's face up on the field, and Keener can also randomly discard a card from his hand to destroy all special summon monsters on the field. So it's no mind drain, but that was a heck of a first turn. And now Huang is in deep thought as to what he's going to do about Jalvin. And he's decided to start off by drawing more cards, with Sacred Sword of 7 stars, Banishing Blaster. Slowly takes a look at what he's picking up, and activates the effect of Blaster.
Okay.
Now, what could the 2 face-down cards be here for Keener?
Well, when he searched with Spellbook of the Master, he went and got Spellbook of Fate. He didn't search that out in the end phase, so I would bet one of them is Spellbook of Fate, and the other is probably a trap card. First up, it's Tsukiyomi. Tsukiyomi is a fantastic card for Huang to draw. Those came in from the side deck. When you normal summon Tsukiyomi, or it's flipped face up, you can target you must target 1 monster on the field, and that resolution turns that monster face down. Tsukiyomi is also a spirit monster, which means that it will return to Huang's hand at the end of the turn. It also means that he can use it endlessly, provided that it isn't eliminated. Tsukiyomi has turned Jalvin face down, which means that special summons are fair game again. And he wastes no time taking the opportunity to pitch Stream along with Blaster. Keener asks for a check for cards in hands. Gives him the thumbs up. And Title joins the party. Next up, Lightning, Dragon Ruler of Drafts. It means the Tempest is going to show up. Neither of those monsters can attack, though, so he'll need to do something with them before he gets the opportunity. And he chooses to Xyz summon Mecha Phantom Beast Dracosack. Asks again for a check of cards in hand. Sees 2. Going to take a look at the dragons. He's probably going to think for a second to see which dragons have been used so far. I like how it's just Blaster.
Now, in a situation like this, would the opponent be forced to tell him which he activated?
Yes, that's mandatory. So there's a Spellbook of Fate, and instead of using up all of his spellbooks at once, he's going to go ahead and use it to flip Dracosack face down before it can activate its effect. But yes, if you are asked about which effects that can only be used once per turn that you have used, you do have to answer. You can't tell him, I don't know.
So it's not Keener's responsibility to keep track of that on his own.
It is not necessarily his responsibility, but it is to his advantage as a player in this duel to know which dragons have been used and which have not. Redox comes out of the graveyard, takes aim at Jowgen, and Tsukiyomi finishes off the Spellbook Magician. While it did have 400 extra attack points from those 4 spell counters on the Star Halls, it was not enough. 900 isn't good enough to beat Tsukiyomi. And in the end phase, Super Rejuvenation.
Four more
cards. I suppose turnabout is fair play. Keener got 3 more cards and a monster out of Spellbook of Judgment. But off that, he drew another Super Rejuvenation, and now things are just getting a little silly. Wow. You think he drew the 3rd one? That'd be pretty good. Finals of the World Championship. 1 duel away from winning. Triple Rejuvenation.
Cards?
Draw 12 cards.
Wow. 8 cards.
That would be an impressive way to do it, but 8 cards is still pretty good.
You think?
Alright, at the end of the turn, he's got to discard down 6. And he's pitched some more dragons to do it. Alright, so there's a face down Dracosack and a Redox that's only going to be here until the end of the turn.
Players get instructed to shuffle Huang's deck, I think.
I think you're right. Although why that was done after all the cards were drawn for Super Rejuvenation mystifies me. Perhaps there's an effect I missed. Keener's up. Starts things off with Spellbook of Eternity. That lets you retrieve any of your banished Spellbook spells. Of course, he picks Spellbook of Judgment. It looks like there is a discussion being held over the number of spell counters on each of the Star Halls, and whether or not he has enough dice at his disposal to mark them all. Well, he does now. He's got the Judgment, but if he doesn't have enough of a follow-up for it, he might try to wait things out one more turn. Now that is if he has the cards to help him stay in the game long enough. There are a lot of dragons in that graveyard.
He has 1 trap card in hand. I can't really see what it is.
It's a Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, it looks like.
think you're right. It's the Judgment and 2 other spells. 1 monster.
Probably spellbooks.
He
He's going to
activates
start things
Judgment.
off with Judgment. That's 8 spell counters on his star holes, which means that all of the spellcasters will gain 800 attack points.
So, out of your little dudes, you make big dudes.
Yep.
There comes a little dude.
Oh, he's got a Jowgen. He can randomly discard a card to destroy all special summon monsters on the field, which would include everything on his opponent's side of the field. But first, Spellbook of Secrets. He's maxed out the first dice being used as a spell counter. His monsters are now plus 1,000, and he's going for a search. Goes to get Spellbook of Power. That can add another 1,000 onto a spellcaster. And if the monster enchanted by Spellbook of Power defeats another monster in battle, you get to search for yet another spellbook.
And by playing the Spellbook of Power, he actually boosts his monster by 1,200 because he gets 2 spell counters.
Yep. Which he's going to do. So, puny little Jowgen, who starts off at a measly 200 attack points, gets 1,000 out of the power, that's 1,200, and he's also getting another 1,200 out of the Star Halls, making him a 2,400 attack point, level 3 monster that prohibits special summoning, and also searches out another spellbook if it defeats anything in battle.
I think he's doing the math as well.
Yep. Always got to do your math. 2,400 is enough to take out Dracosack, which means that Keener gets to search for another spellbook. Now, he has yet to get the Grand Spellbook Tower on the field, but I think at this point it's more important that he start to recycle his fates so that any possible recourse his opponent will have will just get banished.
Now he activates Master.
Yep. And he's copying Secrets. More spell counters. He's keeping track to make sure that he has the right number of cards for Spellbook of Judgment at the end of the turn. This time he's going to go get his Grand Spellbook Tower. That'll start him off drawing an additional card every turn. And it's a spellbook, so it'll continue to power up little Jowgen over there. Not so little Jowgen anymore, is he?
And counts for Judgment.
Yep. There's the Grand Spellbook Tower. This is going to get out of hand really fast for Huang.
I don't think he has enough dice. I think somebody needs to get him more dice.
Oh, I mean, there's 3 more there. That's a good 18 more counters. He's not going to play 9 more spells, is he? He is, isn't he? All right. Keener sets 2 Speller Trap cards to finish things up for his turn, and in the end phase, he's going to go pull a ton of spellbooks out of his now dwindling deck. Now, he can't get another copy of Spellbook of Judgment directly, but you can get the Secrets, which is the next best thing. And now, one thing to note is that he can't special summon. Jowgen is a double-edged sword there, and while it would be really nice to have Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer right about now, just to make sure, he can't get it.
There comes Mystical Space Typhoon.
Yep, Mystical Space Typhoon in the end phase eliminates Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. Ooh. But we saw Spellbook of Fate earlier, so that one's probably still hiding down there.
And that was probably not the best target for him.
We still don't know what that one face-down card is from the start of the game. Now I just want to see it. I think he's just slow rolling a solemn judgment for the entire game this time.
That would be an amazing bluff.
After seeing what happened last time around.
Ah, Tsukiyomi again.
Yep. Now, if you were going to use a warning or a judgment, there's solemn judgment. If ever there was a card to use it on, it's the one that would make you lose if it went through.
And that gets a reaction from the crowd here in the hall.
When was the last time you saw Solemn Judgment on Tsukiyomi?
2003? Huang is undeterred. He plays card destruction, discarding 5 dragons.
He is as cool as they come.
He does not want to lose this one.
No.
You get up 1-0 on a spellbook deck, which doesn't happen often, you gotta win game 2. You do not want to give spellbooks a chance to get back in it.
Oh.
And he drew into Blaster and Burner. And it looks like he's discarding them to destroy Jowgen, which will turn special summons back on. That's a pretty good draw for card destruction. Although at this point he's drawn so many cards in the duel that he's bound to get there eventually.
Now, could that face down card be Wisdom?
Spellbook of Wisdom? I believe it has to be Spellbook of Fate, which unfortunately he can't use now that there's no spellcaster on his side of the field. And a Wisdom wouldn't really help there because it doesn't stop monster effects.
Oh yes, it only helps against spells and traps. Is that a card to side out in this matchup?
Spellbook of Wisdom? Yes. Yes, unless you absolutely need the spellbooks, and looking at his deck list, he clearly does not. There are many spellbooks that are not Wisdom. I would probably side it out. Oh, there's 1 Dragon Ruler, 2 Dragon Ruler, 3 Dragon Rulers.
Wow.
It's a lot of dragons. And that's it. Card destruction into Burner wins the day.
Yeah.
And Shin and Huang of Taiwan is your 2013 Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading Card Game World Champion.
All right, that's it for the dueling action this weekend. We will be streaming live the awards ceremony, so stay tuned for that. And remember to check online on the 20th for the next Forbidden and Limited list. Thank you for watching.
Good night, everyone.
See.